January the 1st. So our time frame is 1 hour. 1 hour. This is where we set our move in 1 hour. And then the next thing we work with is break of structure and church. Break of structure and church. These are our instruments that we use in our trading strategy. Break of structure, church. But the first thing there, before it is break of structure in church, it must be the previous high. Previous high and the previous low are key points. Previous high and the previous low. We do not trade below the previous low. We trade below the previous low after church or POS. After church or POS. So then we mark the first high, and we call it the first leg of M, or the first high or low. Then we call it the first leg of M or W. And then we pull back. When we pull back, we get what we call second point of trend line. Okay, so we get the second point of trend line. Then we go above again or below. As we pass the initial low, then we switch to above or below the initial high, any high or low. What we get there is to switch to 15 minutes time frame. Then once we get to do that, and then we get our first entry. Our second entry will be when we break below the trend line. Below trend line, break, let's call it break of trend line. That's one. And then after we break trend line, and then we're gonna break the initial low, and then we're gonna break the initial low and come back for entry. That's where we get our POS and then entry. So these are the steps. These are the steps we will follow. Okay, so the time frame is 1 hour. We switch down to 15 minutes for entry. 15 minutes, we switch down to 15 minutes for entry. Okay, and then we need the previous low or the previous high, and then we must watch the price as it breaks above it, and then we mark the initial high or the initial low if it breaks below it or recharge below it. Then the second point of going low or going high is giving us on the trend line, one high and one low. Just going to demonstrate this on the video, but just get the elements in place first. This is how it's going to be every day, for better or worse, for a win or a lose, but we're going to stick to these rules. Okay, so we're going to have three types of entries, 3 entry points. First entry, then we're going to have a second entry, after the break of trend line, and then we're going to get the third entry. So this is how it's going to be. So from the 1st of January, we see there is a BOS here, which is a break of structure. Then we're going to take our infamous trend line and mark the initial high above BOS. In this case, the high was bullish, so we mark the initial high. Price action comes down and forms a low, and then we have two lows now. This low and that low, that forms a trend line. This forms a trend line. Okay, trend line for support, we use a white line. Trend line for support. Now we have 2 points. Now we go above. As we go above, then we switch to 15 minutes because this is the 15 minutes hunting zone. So we're going to switch to 15 minutes. This area that I highlighted, we're going to switch to 15 minutes. We go to 15 minutes. I'm looking for this area there. So what did we find inside that area? Inside that area, we can now adjust our high properly to the high of 1 hour, and then above the high of 1 hour, this is where we look for a reversal. In this case, we've come across an M, and we've come across an M and an I. Came across an M and an I. The M was before the break of structure and the I is after, which makes sense since I is in. Actually, this is in. So we have M and in because we started with the I here. So the initial I for initial, it's an I that looks like an I here with a dot. I am in. So we can see where was our break of structure. Our break of structure was here on the previous high line. The old high line, that's where our break of structure was. And we're just going to present it with the blue line. Let's make it solid. There. That's where our break of structure was. And then this was the initial high, initial high of M, coming down by the trend line, holding the trend line. Then it created an M at the top and an in. Okay, right, and then we sell in. Even the high point of M, we can sell here at the high point of M, and we can sell here at the second highest point, which is in. Okay, that's what we do. In this case, our stop loss was threatened. But let's see if it was hit or something. Stop loss is sitting here. If our stop loss is here, was our stop loss threatened? Stop loss here, was it threatened? Let's go to the candles to see that the stop loss wasn't threatened, but we didn't have an immediate goal to profit. We stayed around, we consolidated a lot. So now we go back here, but that's what we do. That's our strategy. We get an I, we get an M and an I in 15 minutes. I am in, and then that's what guides us. How do you get your I am in? You can predict as soon as you get the first high, then you can predict the second high of M, because you connect the I and the first high of M, that will give you your in. So this point here, I, as we go above the first leg of M, you're going to get the first high of M, and then you connect the I and the first high of M in 15 minutes. Then you get the second high, which sticks out and above the trend line, and then once you break this trend line and go below it, you come back for entry on this projected line. Even later, when the price action came back, it came back and hit this area and turn around. Okay, so it was becoming more flat now, it wasn't going higher anymore. Okay, then we can set the target to say maybe if we sold here, then we project a stop loss, say maybe a bit higher. That would be our stop loss, and then you can still project your take profit. Let's say we are in a day where we need to get the profit of say 10, then you can make a 1:10 ratio. 1:10 ratio. If you need 2 positions to make $10, then you can just work around the positions you're taking. So let's see, very long time we hit the previous low. We didn't hit the previous low here, so we went as far as this low. I wonder how much this will be. Let's see if I can measure that. Starting from here to this low was 44 points. That's about $44. So if you wanted 10, you would have just taken one position. If you wanted $44 there, did $88, you take 2 positions. That's what it would have been. Great. So now let's go over the points again. The points are 15 minutes is for entry, 1 hour does the trick. 1 hour does the trick. Let's go back to 1 hour. 1 hour, when you get a BOS in 1 hour, we mark the initial high, and then we let the price action come back and touch. As it swings to a higher point, it touches the second point, which connects the trend line. Okay, and then as soon as the price go above the initial high, we switch to 15 minutes. So it's previous high or low, BOS or church, high or low, in this case is high, second point of trend line. This is the second point of trend line, 1 below BOS and 1 above BOS. Okay, above and below initial high and initial low, this is the point, and then you switch to 15 minutes above the initial high. Here we switch to 15 minutes, you get the first entry in 15 minutes, which is, let's go there in 15 minutes. Now we switch to 15 minutes, we get a high and a higher high. Same like we got a high here, we're looking for a higher high. Here we got a high, then we connect the initial high and that high, new high, and then the M will stick out, come back in, and then we come back for in. Sell the high point of M and sell the in. If the price action come back again to the in, you still sell the in, it's safe. Okay, that's the basis of the strategy. Let's go look for reversal. We're starting from the 1st of January here, and we move on. Let's look for an example where we had a low. In this case here, we had a church. If we had a church and we apply our rule, we would say this low. this would have been, after a church, this would have been our low, the initial low, in this color, solid. But now the problem with this low is one. There isn't a low that we're taking out. There is no initial low, no old low. No old low means we can't expect a swing if there is no old low. So then we abort, even though there is church, but there's no old low, so we abort. Now we have a low. When we come back to this low and we BOS this low, now this becomes our old low here. Here at the BOS will be our old low, and then we're gonna have our first swing low, and then in this box will be our hunting zone in 15 minutes. So this would be our hunting zone in 15 minutes. So let's drop down to 15 minutes and see what was there. 15 minutes, see what was there. Here is our 15 minutes below this low. Now we can adjust this low to suit a low of 15 minutes. Now this is what we have above. So now before we go there, let's go back to 1 hour, draw the trend line first. The trend line will be the one below and the one that emerged, that just emerged, which is this one and this one. You connect these two, there is our trend line there. This trend line, we're gonna have a second entry after, but let's see now on this 15 minutes entry, what do we have there again with our trend line in place now. Okay, so we can just fix our trend line now to suit the 15 minutes there. What do we have here is like we have a W. This looks to me like just a plain simple W, which came with needle in the middle that you wouldn't see if you were not in 5 minutes. In 5 minutes you see a UW in. By all means, go down to where you can see, we go down where we can see clearly the UW in, a U and a IM in. Here we see a UW in. So we take the in, we trade the in this case, or we trade the second high, the second high of W, second low of W. So let's see here, come from this joint and we take out the 1 ear of W, and then we get the entry here. But here we took out both the ears of W, the small trend line, but you can read the UW in going down. Then from here we go back to 15 minutes, wherein we will break the structure and W in will come in on the other side. So now there is U here, then there is W, this whole is W, and then there is in. In is after a break of structure like it was in the past example. In comes in at the break of structure. So we would have gotten this low entry and we would have gotten this entry after church, after break of the trend line, then we would have gotten this entry. Now since we got this low, say our stop loss was this low and our take profit would have been going up here. We are trading against the trend, so we must be very strict and come out early, because this is where we had a point of reference for our strategy. We will come out early. When the price comes back to zero, then we know it's gonna go past. But then we would have gotten this much, almost to the close to the high of the day, almost the whole chunk of the day we would have gotten. Now go back to an hour. There is our trend line here. There is our initial low. There is this portion sticking out, forming the second leg of W, because we're trading W. And there is our in here coming in after the break of a trend line. Then this is what we would have gotten going up here. So going forward, this is our church. We make the initial line above here, we let the price action go down, go up again, and then we switch to 15 minutes here, and then in 15 minutes that's our hunting zone, and then we would have gotten our entry there. And then because the trend has changed now, we just got the M and a W here. So as the W completes and doesn't hold, go break above the center line, which is the baseline here. As the W goes over, then we know the trade failed. We are now bullish. The trade failed here, we are now bullish. But we would have gotten a ratio of 1:2, even in the wrong direction, but the ratio would have been 1:2. Now we must be careful against swinging after a church. A church doesn't promote reversal, it promotes continuation. Church promote continuation, which means we must look for entry below church if we're going up. Look for entry above church if the trend is going down. Yeah, that's what the strategy entails. Lastly, if I may go over the review, 1 hour, 15 minutes is we're going in for hunt. Our references is a previous high or a previous low, the break of structure or church line, the high and the low, initial high, initial low, the second point of a trend line, and then we go above the initial high or below the initial low. Then we get our first entry when we switch to 15 minutes, and we get our second entry when we break the trend line, and then we get our third entry after the break of structure. Finito, finito.